जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। जमुना तीरा बनचारी। जमुना तीरा बनचारी। जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी। जय गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन। जमुना तीरा बनचारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी। श्री श्री राधा कालाचांद जी की जय। जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की। श्री श्री गौर निताई की जय। शीला प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। Hare Krishna. I welcome all of you for today morning Bhagavatam class. So we will be discussing Canto 10, Chapter 10 entitled Deliverance of Nalkuver and Manigriva, Yamlarjun tree, and verse number 10 to, I think 10 to 7:13. Huh? Let me see. Yeah, text 7 to text 13. Okay. So let's start with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyantimirandhasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादां सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्ता राधाकान्ता नमस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चना गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवसादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्देशतारिणे नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय Okay. Okay, let's start with text 7 translation. Can someone read?
Seeing the two sons of the demigods naked and intoxicated by opulence and false prestige, Devashi Narada, in order to show them special mercy, desired to give them a special curse. Thus he spoke as follows.
Narada Muni said, among all the attractions of material enjoyment, the attractions of riches bewilders one's intelligence more than having beautiful bodily features. Taking birth in an aristocratic family and being learned, when one is uneducated by falsely puffed up by wealth, the result is that one engages his wealth in enjoying wine, women, and gambling.
Actually, recently we heard very nice pastime how Mother Yashoda bind Krishna, and Dharma Prabhu gave very nice class. So now Shukdev Goswami is introducing who is Yamala Arjun tree. So now Krishna in his Damodar form, he is going to deliver them. So here they are saying that these Arjuna tree were none other than son of Kubera. Kubera is a treasurer of demigod. And treasurer means he has abundance of money, wealth. And just because, kids they are naturally inherit all those entire riches and money. So they were like very intoxicated. And because of that closeness to Lord Shiva and that prideful situation, they were like, he is narrating the story how they were cursed by Narad Muni. So here they are establishing the fact that in all opulences, in all qualities, or we say disqualification, this wealth is the main cause where a person gets stuck. Even Queen Kunti in her prayer, she said, Jan Aishwarya Shrutam Shribi, Ed Mana Madapurman, Nev Arhati Abhidatum Vai Kam Tam Akinchana Gochara. This material birth, this is just because of this material birth, this is material opulence. We stay away from Krishna. Actually, when I heard this verse first time, when I joined Krishna consciousness, I was scared. Like Krishna does not like this distinction, this opulence. So whenever he is pleased, he takes away that is opulence. So I got so scared. Being a neophyte devotee, I got so scared that I don't want to become a poor person. I don't want this kind of bhakti where Krishna takes away all the opulences. And he does not like opulence. So I was told that it is not for new people. It is when we are, and actually it comes through mercy. And that mercy comes, when we are able to understand that mercy, that time that mercy comes. Otherwise, in beginning stage, if that mercy comes, then it can take us away from Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is very, safe player. He does not want any devotee to go away from him. Rather, when you become pakka devotee, when you become, so much fixed up in your Krishna consciousness, then he gives. And in a way he gives, then up to that extent, when you can tolerate. Like Queen Kunti, she got so much calamity. We have all read in first canto. How she was able to tolerate. If we were her, if we put ourselves in her situation, like 5 sons, they are deprived of their kingdom and they are mistreated in their family, this is biggest thing. Friends, we can tolerate misbehavior of friends. But it's very difficult to tolerate misbehavior among the family members. It's very difficult, painstaking. Nobody can do that. But Krishna is putting her in such a situation to teach us that how things can go wrong in our life and how can we show our dependency upon Krishna. So all these things comes when we have maturity in our devotional life. So here they are saying, Narad Muni is saying that among all attraction of material enjoyment, this attraction of riches, wealth is so intoxicating that all other, we should say, I am not getting that exact word, disqualification or bad qualification, whatever, is pride, false ego, and other things comes because of this riches, this wealth. So he's saying the attraction of riches bewilders one's intelligence more than having the beautiful bodily features. Taking birth in an aristocratic family and being learned, whether we are educated, it does not matter so much. When we are so beautiful, it does not matter so much. But with wealth, we think that we can do anything, we can buy anything, even we can buy people, we can make them slave. And we start getting so much intoxicated. Yes. Next.
Unable to control their senses, rascals who are falsely proud of the riches of their birth in aristocratic families are so cruel that to maintain their perishable bodies, which they think will never grow old or die, they kill poor animals without mercy. Sometimes they kill animals merely to enjoy an excursion.
Yeah. The person can become so intoxicated that he can start killing poor animals. Like not only for eating, just for enjoyment. They go out and they do all these, what we call, hunting, yeah, just for their enjoyment.
While While living, one may be proud of one's body, thinking oneself a very big minister, president, or even demigod. But whatever one may be, after death this body will turn either into worms, into stool, or into ashes. If one kills poor animals to satisfy the temporary whims of this body, one does not know that he will suffer in his next birth, for such a sinful miscreant must go to hell and suffer the results of his actions.
We are so ignorant in that intoxicated situation that we don't know where we are going. We don't even realize that we are going to go hell because we are so happy. We feel like that this is it. So just because of that ignorance, we just keep going. Next.
While alive, does this body belong to its employer, to the self, to the father, the mother, or the mother's father? Does it belong to the person who takes it away by force, to the slave master who purchases it, or to the sons who burn it in the fire? Or if the body is not burned, does it belong to the dogs that eat it? Among the many possible claimants, who is the rightful claimant? Not to ascertain this, but instead to maintain the body by sinful activities is not good.
Actually, these kind of verses when we read, it's just, give us a sudden shock. And then we forget, just because of this effect of Maya, that this body does not belong to even us, and not even to our father, mother, not even to those who are eating our body after once if we are not cremated well. So to those who are eating us, the dogs and hogs, it does not belong to anyone. But yet on the bodily platform, we keep committing so many sinful activity. We become so proud that we don't even care about other people. Yes.
This body, after all, is produced by the unmanifested nature and again annihilated and merged in the natural elements. Therefore, it is the common property of everyone. Under the circumstances, who but a rascal claims this property as his own, and while maintaining it, commits such sinful activities as killing animals just to satisfy his whims. Unless one is a rascal, one cannot commit such sinful activities.
Yeah, so this is ignorance, sheer ignorance, that although we know that this body is not ours, and sometimes people even don't know that because of they are not preached, they knowledge of Bhagavad Gita has not reached to them. So just because of their ignorance, they keep killing animals just for their pleasure. They keep eating meat. They think that this is the nicest food, but not even our bodily structure support that. Not our intestine can digest that food. They have to work hard. They have to go to gym and spend a lot of hours, many hours, just to digest that. Otherwise, they get indigestion. They get sick. Even our teeth are not meant to eat those kind of food. So just because of that ignorance that we are eating non-veg, we are killing animals in an indirect way. If we are eating, that means we are supporting animal killing. Can we read this purport?
Purport. Atheists do not believe in the existence of the soul. Nonetheless, unless one is very cruel, why should one kill animals unnecessarily? The body is a manifestation of a combination of matter. In the beginning, it was nothing, but by a combination of matter, it has come into existence. Then again, when the combination is dismantled, the body will no longer exist.
So if you read how this body manifests, how these material elements get together and creates false ego, mind, intelligence, senses, and how this water element come and fire element get connected, and all this sound and ether, all this come together to make this body. And after that, once this material manifestation become unmanifested, all these material element even starts getting disintegrated, merging into each other, and they merge into Mahat Tattva, and that also converted into, that is active, that also converted into Pradhan, which is inactive. So this body does not have its own existence, but just because of the soul need to function, so this body comes into picture. And soul does not need to, means this soul does not need food, this soul does not need sense gratification, but just because of this body has so many senses, 5 senses, and so many need, and we are just on the need of this body, which is temporary, will merge after annihilation, or after once we are died. But just because of want of fulfilling the want of this body, we are just killing those animals. We are just doing so many things which can put other in uncomfortable situation. We are not caring about others. And sometimes we feel like we are the proprietor of whatever is given to us. Like I was hearing, like when we have some kind of distinction, some kind of talent, like we can sing nicely, we can give class nicely, or we can read nicely. But all these opulences, all this distinction will go away once we are done with this material body. Even those things does not belongs to us. They are given by the mercy of Lord. So we should use it for the service of, if we are using these distinction in the service of Lord, they will be very supporting to us, our spiritual progress. But if we are proud of these mentality, all these distinction, that it can bind us. Instead of supporting us, it can bind us. So always we should be grateful that whatever we are given by Krishna, we should try to use for the service of Krishna.
In the beginning it was nothing, and in the end it will be nothing. Why then should one commit sinful activities when it is manifested? It is not possible for anyone to do this unless he is rascal number 1.
Next.
Atheistic fools and rascals who are very much proud of wealth fail to see things as they are. Therefore, returning them to poverty is the proper ointment for their eyes, so they may see things as they are. At least a poverty-stricken man can realize how painful poverty is, and therefore he will not want others to be in a painful condition like his own.
Yes. So if a person who is atheistic, they are put into a poverty-stricken situation when they would not get anything to, enjoy their senses. They hardly get food to eat. So all their senses become very slack. They become very weak. So just because of that weakness, they are incapable of engaging themselves into sense gratification. So also this poverty becomes a blessing for them. So can you please read the purport?
Even today, if a man who was formerly poverty-stricken gets money, he is inclined to utilize his money to perform many philanthropic activities like opening schools for uneducated men and hospitals for the disease.
Actually, this is the fact. When we suffer, we go through certain situation, we don't want other to suffer in that situation. Because naturally we develop that compassion for that other person. Like yesterday, I was talking to a lady, and she was she finished her PhD, and her boss, I should say mentor, he was not so cooperative. Means in the night he used to call for the papers, or means he was very disturbing her. So I was talking to her. So she was saying that I'm not going to do with my subordinates, whoever will pursue PhD under me, because now she will be doing postdoc. So she will be mentor for others. So they can understand what we went through. So they don't want to put others into such situations. Even a person who is, like Prabhupada has mentioned, that a person who went through a poverty-stricken condition can understand if some other family are not getting proper education, or they are not getting nourished food, then they can come forward. Like it is seen that most of these kind of family, they come forward and help other family in educating others kids, and in getting the jobs for others unemployed people. So because they can understand, they can relate that situation. But it does not need that we have to develop those quality, we have to go through certain these kind of situation. Sometimes these qualities are inbuilt because of our parentage. If our parents are very nicely, giving us, raising us, giving us that culture, then we can also have that quality. Yes.
In this connection, there is an instructive story called Punarmushiko Bhava. Again, become a mouse. A mouse was very much harassed by a cat, and therefore the mouse approached a saintly person to request to become a cat. When mouse became a cat, he was harassed by a dog. And then when he became a dog, he was harassed by a tiger. But when he became a tiger, he stared at the saintly person. And when the saintly person asked him, "What do you want?" Tiger said, "I want to eat you." Then the saintly person cursed him, saying, "May you again become a mouse." A similar thing is going on all over the universe. One is going up and down, sometimes becoming a mouse, sometimes becoming a tiger, and so on. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, "Brahmanda Brahmita Konat." The living entities are promoted and degraded by the laws of nature, but if one is very, very fortunate by association
Yeah, this
with
is the main point. If one is very, very fortunate by the association with saintly person, he gets the seed of devotional service. And this is what is done by Sri Narad Muni here. Because all those, yeah, but I took this text. Yeah, I talked to her. So Narad Muni performed this act for bringing Nalkuver and Manigriva to a point where they can get mercy. Because by their behavior it was not possible to get the mercy. But when a pure devotee comes, so he even though giving us curse, or he is acting so harshly towards us, that harsh behavior towards us, that curse towards us, can bring us to the point to get darshan of Lord. So that's what we will see going forward, that Narad Muni wanted to give them mercy. Now let's go back to text 10. देव संगीतम अप्यन्ते krami vid bhasma sammitam bhutadhrag tatkrate krate swartham kim veda nirayo yataha deva sangitam apyante krami vidam bhasma samvitam bhutadhrag tatkrate swartham kim veda nirayo yataha deva sangitam apyante krami vidbhasam samvitam bhutadhrag tatkrate swartham kim veda nirayo yataha deva sangvitam apyante krami vidbhasma samvitam bhutadhrag tatkrate swartham kim veda nirayo yataha deva sangitam apyante bhasma samvitam bhutadhrag tatkratim sartham kim veda nirayo yataha. One more person. Deva samnitam apyante krami vidbhasma sangvitam bhutadhrag tatkrate swartham kim veda nirayo yata deva sangitam apyante krami vidbhasma sangitam bhutadhrag tatkrate swartham kim veda nirayo yata deva sangitam. The body now known as very exalted person like president, minister or even demigod. Api, even if the body is so exalted, ante, after death, krami, turns into worms, with or into stool, bhasma sangitam, or into ashes, bhutadhrag, a person who does not accept the shastric injunction and is unnecessarily envious of other living entities. Tatkrate, by acting in that way. Niraya yataha, because from such sinful activity one must suffer hellish conditions. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. While living, one may be proud of one's body, thinking oneself a very big man, minister, president, or even demigod. But whatever one may be, after death, this body will turn either into worms, into stool, or into ashes. If one kills poor animal to satisfy temporary whims of this body, one does not know that he will suffer in the next life, next birth. For such a sinful miscreant must go to hell or suffer the result of his action. Purport. In this word, the three words krami with bhasma are significant. After death, the body may become krami, which means worms. For if the body is disposed of without cremation, it may be eaten by worms, or else it may be eaten by animals like hogs and vulture and be turned into stool. That's why it's a Vaishnav culture. In our Vaishnav culture, we burn body. For the acharya, we give them samadhi. So this is the proper way of dealing with the dead body, so that we don't leave them disrespected. Those who are more civilized burn the dead body, and thus it becomes ashes. Bhasma sangitam. Yet although the body will turn into worms, stool or ashes, foolish person, just to maintain it, commit many sinful activities. Actually, if we see in our life that we more like remember our enjoyment, our parties, but if somebody die in the family, we cry for this. But if we remember it forever, every day, that we are also going to go in such situation, then we would not be attached with the body. But the problem is we forget. After some time, we forget that person, and also we forget that we are also going to go through such situation. So on the basis of this bodily conception, we again start committing lot of sinful activities. This is certainly regrettable. Yes. The human form of life, human form of body is actually meant for jivasya tattva jigyasa, enlightenment in the knowledge of spirit values. Therefore, one must seek the shelter of bona fide spiritual master. Actually, it is said that if we are in so much ignorance, if we get the shelter of a spiritual master who can takes away all these ignorance from us, so then we are very fortunate. We say that Om Agyanti Mirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya. Why we call it? Because he takes away that darkness and he gives us that light, that knowledge. Like even in devotees, there are so many instances when Srila Prabhupada gave his disciples that chastisement, a sweet chastisement, where he wanted to teach them some, make them awake. Like there was one devotee in San Francisco when Prabhupada was there. Her name was Linda. She came and joined Srila Prabhupada, and she started cooking for Srila Prabhupada. Actually, that time mostly hippie joined Srila Prabhupada, but she was like very educated, and she was going in university, and she was very well mannered. So Prabhupada was very impressed, and she used to sit in front of Srila Prabhupada. She used to eat. Prabhupada used to give her some prasadam. So everybody was saying that she has so much favor of Srila Prabhupada. Then she also started feeling that oh, I am favored by him. So one time there was Ekadashi time, then Prabhupada was making Simply Wonderful. And she also came and joined Srila Prabhupada in kitchen, and she started also helping him. And when he came out of kitchen and everybody was honoring prasadam after offering to deities, then Prabhupada asked her, "Oh, Linda, tell me, what did we add? What is there? What do you feel? What is there in that laddu?" So she said, Srila Prabhupada, I don't know, miss. I am not able to figure out. He said, but you were there to help me. She said, but I did not pay attention. Then he started laughing. He started making fun of her. Was it a proper behavior of Prabhupada? What do you think? Why? If our spiritual master is laughing at us like this, what do you feel? What would you feel? Any of you? You will start feeling devastated, right? You will feel like this earth should open up and we should go down into this earth. So it was very, yes, Mataji.
It depends on the relationship. You were saying that she was very familiar and close with Srila Prabhupada. If the relationship was like grandfather and granddaughter, then if he's teasing her like that, then, I mean, if it was me, I would just laugh along with it. I'll be like, yeah.
But she was very devastated. She felt so much humiliated because everybody else started laughing at her. So then after some time, she got so humbled that she understood that her spiritual master humbled her. We should be humble. Like, although later on she was initiated as Leelavati Mataji, so she was sharing that although we have that relationship, but we should not be proud of that relationship. That spiritual master comes and humble us just to make us progress in that situation. And there is also one more instance when there was one temple president, I forgot which temple. There was one Prabhu, Lochananand Prabhu. Prabhupada came in that temple. So he was thinking there are so many people, but I would get that distinction because I am temple president. So Prabhupada will be very, paying so much attention on me. Then he was there in the assembly of the devotees. So Lochananand Prabhu started introducing devotee. So there was one devotee, his name was Ghanshyam Prabhu. So Prabhupada introduced to Prabhupada that this Ghanshyam Prabhu is translating your books into, I think, French language. So Prabhupada was very happy. So Prabhupada said, can you stand up? So he stood up and Prabhupada appreciated him. Oh, very nice. So everybody was very happy. He got appreciation. And then the turn comes to temple president. So Lochananand Prabhu said, here is our temple president. I think his name was Hamsaduta or I think, yeah. So he stood up without telling Prabhupada that he should stand up. He stood up and he was thinking Prabhupada will be very happy to meet me. But Prabhupada just turned away and he was waiting for other person to get introduced. And it humbled Hamsaduta Prabhu that this presidentship is not a distinction that can please Srila Prabhupada, his spiritual master. So all this situation, when it comes, and when Srila Prabhupada came in his disciples' life, they can humble, so that they can move forward in their spiritual life, they can do that advancement. So that's why these situations come. But in the case of Manigriva and Nal Kuber, they are very materialistic. So in their situation, the remedy was different. Since they did not respect, they did not respect Narad Muni, his position. Even those girls, they came out of the water and they were hiding themselves. But these two guys, they were so intoxicated that they showed their disrespect towards Narad Muni. So for them, this was their best remedy, to get cursed by Narad Muni. And by curse, it became blessing. That they were aware of what they had done in their previous life, they became tree. And by becoming tree, they got so much purification that at the end of their life, they got delivered by Krishna in Damodar form. And it is said that these Nal Kuber and Manigriva, they became Snigdhakant and Madhukant in the spiritual world. And they are they narrate this pastime constantly in the assembly of Nand Maharaj and Srimati Radhika, day and night, every day. Can we believe that such kind of intoxicated people can turn into a constant speaker of Bhagavatam in the assembly of Krishna, Golok Vrindavan? So this is the great fortune when we get the association of pure devotee in any form. It does not maybe it does not turn very pleasantly, but at the end, it is always very fruitful. So we'll finish this purport. Tasmat gurum prapadyate. One must approach a guru. Who is a guru? Shabde pare cha nishnatam. Bhagavatam 11.3.21. A guru is one who has full transcendental knowledge. Unless one approaches a spiritual master, one remain in ignorance. Acharyavan Purusho Veda, Chandogya Upanishad 6.14.2. One has full knowledge about life when one is Acharyavan, controlled by the Acharya. But when one is conducted by Rajogun and Tamogun, one does not care about anything. Instead, one acts like an ordinary foolish animal, risking his life. Mrityu samsar vartmani. Actually, it is said that in a spiritual life, we have to come on the platform of mode of goodness. Generally, we are in the mode of passion and ignorance. This body is full of lust, anger, false pride, greed, what all these things are. They bring us in the mode of passion and ignorance. So I heard that first we have to come on the platform of goodness by developing good qualities. Then we can transcend all these modes. Then we can come on Satogun, Shuddha Satogun, where we can transcend even mode of goodness. Therefore, continuing to go through suffering after suffering. Na te vidhu swartha gatim hi Vishnum. Bhagavatam 7.5.31. Such a foolish person does not know how to elevate himself in this body. Instead, he indulges in the sinful activities and goes deeper and deeper into hellish life. So this is what was happening to Nalkuvera and Manigriva. They were on Kailash, they were taking bath in Mandakini river, and they were naked. They were enjoying. And Narad Muni came, and they did not show their respect. They got cursed. And after curse, the next class, they will tell that how they got delivered by Krishna as a Damodar. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any question, comment? Yes, Ms. Prabhuji.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, if I could. I remember in 1973, since there was so much talk about animal slaughter, Prabhupada references this so much in his purports. I think it was 1973 in Paris, Srila Prabhupada had met with this cardinal, he was a Cardinal Danalu, I think was his name, John Danalu. And the whole conversation, Prabhupada was talking about, the commandment, thou shalt not kill. And this cardinal would not accept that the animals had a soul, that you may know about this pastime. And Prabhupada was driving it home, and no, there's no soul in the animals, therefore we can eat the animals, kill the animals. So it was a lengthy conversation, but that was the point Prabhupada continued to try to drive home. And here was a cardinal, an exalted personality, but could not accept that there is a soul in the animals. So
this is ignorance. Even a person who is like so well versed in Shastra, he is teaching them, they are not ready to accept. Mr. Bhagwan.
When devotees go out on Sankirtan, book distribution in shopping centers, they run into the opposition of, the people are there. They have a fantastic, brand new BMW SUV with hundreds of dollars worth of groceries and nice new clothes and just totally on the game. And then when we present Prabhupada's books to them, they just say, I'm good, I'm fine. Or sometimes they won't even say anything to you. They just wave their finger like, you just keep moving, One time somebody said that to me. I came up with the books. He just said, keep moving.
Keep moving.
Keep moving. Or Indian people especially, they, we're not interested. We're Christians. We're Muslims. We're knowing these things. Krishna and Rama, we know all these things. So many things we know. We have Bhagavad Gita at home. They're all the same. And it's hard on, how's Sankirtan devotees, just everybody's treating him like he's a loser, and they're totally have it all going on. They're good, Yeah, we're good. So you wonder, like, well, maybe I'm good. What am I? No, I come. How come I'm not enjoying like them? And they're so good, and then I'm just like a loser. I all I can do is go to the Hare Krishna temple and chant. And how do we reconcile that?
Actually, it seems like we are not good because we are realizing that we are not good. And they don't realize that they are not good. They feel like they are good, but they are going towards hell. That's what is mentioned here. That for such sinful miscreant must go to hell and suffer the result of his action. And in some of the translation it was mentioned that they don't realize that they are suffering. Because once after they are done with sense gratification, what is left? They get frustrated at one point. And if they timely realize it, that this sense gratification, this kind of life will not give them ultimate happiness, then they can move forward towards a spiritual life. Once I heard that when we broom in the room, then the dust comes more and more. It becomes more dusty. If we go in room which is already dusty on the floor, it looks clean on the top. But when we start brooming it, the dust starts spreading all over the room. We feels like, oh my God, this is so dirty. That's what happens to us. When we start getting purified, this process of purification start happening, then we feel like, oh, we have so many anarthas, we have so many problems, how to get rid of those problems, because we start counting those, we start acknowledging those things. So that's where Rupa Goswami says, Utsaha Nishchay Dhairyat. This dhairya, this patience is very much necessary. Although you already know all this thing, I know you are asking for my purification and for others, but this is what it is. We need to have patience. If anybody else want to make any comment.
I have had with a guy who was a Christian in the land. His name was Michael, and he came and I took him to the cows, and he was like, "Oh, I love cows." And I said, "Okay, what do you eat?" He said, "I eat cows." Then I was like, "What is this? If you like cows, then why do you eat them?" Because he is saying, "Oh,
You have to keep my close.
I like petting them. They're so poor animals. But if he eats them himself, and that he has no right to say that. And when I took him in the temple, we were discussing about this thing, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a staunch follower, but I like cows." And after we came back from the temple, I made him read the last chapter of 5th canto, entitled "Hellish Planets," because he was like, "Okay, I'm not scared at all." And when I gave it to him, after he finished, he was like, "Okay, I'm not eating meat anymore." He's like,
Thank you so much, Govinda, for sharing that. Actually, it's not easy to convince people. This taste of tongue is very hard to get rid of. And also, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati says it takes a bucket of blood to make a devotee. When a devotee goes away, the spiritual master cries. Because it's very difficult. Like Mishra Bhagwan Prabhu shared his experience. People says, no, we are happy, go away, go to next and this and that. It's very difficult because they think that they are happy. But whoever is preaching, whoever is doing book distribution, who is doing outreach, my dandvat to them, it's very difficult to make devotee. Even one devotee, if you are making, this is a biggest service for your spiritual master. Okay, thank you very much. वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. शिला प्रभुपाद की जय.